We're diving into the truly disturbing story of Charles Cullen, a man they called the Angel of Death. But this isn't just about him. It's about the system that let him get away with murder for more than 15 years. So let's just get right to it. There's this one huge, twisted question that hangs over this whole thing, something you really have to ask yourself. See, this story isn't just about one serial killer. It's about the very institutions, the hospitals, that basically allowed him to do what he did.
Okay, so to really wrap our heads around how something this horrifying could even happen, we've got to go back to the beginning. We need to look at the man himself. Who exactly was Charles Cullen before he put on those scrubs and started killing people? You know, when you look at Cullen's early life, it's a mess of trauma. He lost both of his parents before he even finished high school. Then he joins the Navy, right? Gets assigned to a nuclear sub and gets bullied, severely bullied. So after a really tough time, he's discharged. And it seems like this whole history of feeling powerless, of being isolated, kind of pushed him toward a job where he could finally have all the control. A job where he could operate in the shadows, away from all the judgment. So where does all that baggage go? Well, on the outside, Cullen looked like a totally normal dude. He was married, had 2 kids, held down a job as a nurse. But behind the scenes, behind those closed hospital doors, he was secretly perfecting a deadly step-by-step routine. And his method? Man, it was just chillingly simple, and that's what made it so effective. He took advantage of the absolute chaos of an ICU, especially during those late-night shifts when they were short-staffed, no family visiting, not many other people around. He would just pick his victims, often completely at random. And when they died, everyone just thought, oh, well, they were really sick. It looked like a tragic but totally believable complication. His choice of weapon, this is where it gets really terrifyingly smart. He used a drug called digoxin. See, the thing about digoxin is that an overdose looks almost identical to a massive heart attack. And here's the kicker. Back then, it wasn't something coroners routinely tested for in an autopsy. So it was basically a ghost in the system. It let him get away with murder over and over and over again, completely undetected. So you're probably thinking, how in the world does a guy do this for 15 years at hospital after hospital? Well, the answer isn't just about how sneaky Cullen was. A huge part of the blame lies with the hospitals that hired him, and their honestly, almost criminal level of negligence. And this right here, this shows you the core problem in black and white. Every single time a hospital got suspicious, what did they do? They didn't call the cops. No, they chose to protect their own reputation, to avoid a PR nightmare or a big lawsuit. So they just quietly force him to resign and push him out the door, which of course just freed him up to go get a job at the next hospital and start all over again. And here was the deal they'd make. You resign quietly and we'll stop our little investigation and give you a neutral reference. Think about that. This isn't just them looking the other way. This is an active cover-up. They were basically passing the buck, or in this case, passing a serial killer to the next unsuspecting hospital, basically paving the way for him to kill again. 10. Let that number sink in for a second. We're talking about 10 different hospitals. That's 10 separate chances, 10 opportunities for anyone in the healthcare system to step up and stalk this guy, and every single one of them dropped the ball. Unbelievable. So this deadly cycle just keeps going until he gets to Somerset Medical Center. That's where things finally started to change. A whole bunch of weird patient deaths, some really bizarre lab results. It was enough to finally trigger a real police investigation. But here's the twist. The person who would ultimately bring him down wasn't going to be some hotshot detective. It was going to be one of his best friends at the hospital. But right away, the cops hit a total brick wall. Yeah, they had a mountain of circumstantial evidence. They could see his suspicious activity on the drug dispensing machine, the Pyxis. They could see the pattern of deaths that followed him. But they had no smoking gun, no eyewitnesses, no cameras, and to make it worse, the hospital was stonewalling them, terrified of a lawsuit. So the detectives realized, okay, our only shot here, the only way we're going to nail this guy is if we can get him to confess himself. So what do? They go to the one person they think Cullen actually trusts, his coworker and close friend, a nurse named Amy. And they ask her to do something absolutely terrifying. They want her to wear a wire, meet with her friend, and get him to talk. Can you imagine being put in that position? It's unbelievably dangerous. And at first, she's just like, no way, impossible. To her, Charlie was a good guy, a good nurse, her friend. But then the detectives just laid it all out for her. The records, the deaths, and the horrifying truth just started to click into place. And even though she knew she could lose her job, and with it, her family's health insurance, for helping the police, she knew she had to do it. She agreed to help.
So they set it up, a tense lunch at a diner. Amy's wired for sound, and the police are listening in on everything. And she has to somehow steer this casual conversation to the topic of all these patients dying. And then she does it. She looks her friend right in the eye and asks him if he's the one doing it.
And just like that, his smile just dropped. And then he says it. He doesn't say yes, but he gives this chilling, weirdly detached answer. He says it was possible he was capable of such a thing. And that was it. It wasn't a full-blown confession, but it was more than enough. The cops listening in knew they had him. So with that, they arrest him. Cullen's finally in custody. What follows is a grueling 7-hour-long interrogation where, finally, the true, horrifying scope of what he'd done starts to come out. Okay, get this. He confessed to killing 40 people. 40! But authorities? They suspect the real number is way, way higher, maybe closer to 400. If that's true, it would make him the most prolific serial killer in American history. And his excuse? He tried to say he was some kind of mercy killer, but that was a total lie. Many of his victims were actually getting better. They were recovering. Their deaths weren't peaceful, they were violent and painful. So, for the crimes he actually confessed to, Charles Cullen got 18 consecutive life sentences. He is never, ever getting out of prison. But the story isn't quite over. There is one last absolutely unbelievable twist. Years into a sentence, Charles Cullen, the angel of death, donates a kidney. And he saves someone's life. So what do you even do with that? This final act just leaves you with this deeply unsettling question. Was that a genuine act of redemption? Or was it just one last chilling power trip from a man who was obsessed with controlling who lives and who dies? It really brings us right back to where we started. What do you think is worse, the monster himself or the very system that we all trust to keep us safe? A system that, in this case, looked the other way and let the monster roam free for years.